Hello, I'm Rajko Telebar. I'd like to share with you how I came to know the truth. Well, my search began way back in 1981 when I went as a 19-year-old. The army, that was the old one back then, or rather the old Yugoslav army. Then I was simply like a teenager, ripped from one environment and placed in the other one. And an entirely new environment. It felt really strange. I talked to people who were simply different and had different thoughts than me. And then for the first time I really questioned who I am. Who am I? What am I doing in this world? Am I just a small cog in this big, in a system that spins and so on? And I just felt a bit lost. Because I saw that there's something in life you can't influence. Into the army you had to socialize with people and so on. But it was good for me because here I am. Since my teenage years I was placed in a different kind of life. As teenagers, you know how we lived back then. It was simply fooling around, goofing off, drinking, going out and so on. But of course, even then I saw it wasn't fulfilling me. Then I started thinking. That this life has some deeper meaning. I wrote a letter from home, please send me books, I don't know. Escape from Freedom, Eric Fromm, various philosophical books and so on. Then my folks got them for me and I read them. Among other things, there was some talking with people, and I met a man who told me, if there is a God, if there is the devil, that there is a spiritual world, and he communicates with some kind of spiritual realm, etc. And that really intrigued me. And I started to think in that direction too, and after talking to him I remembered when I was little I had a dream where I looked up at the sky and saw the stars, and suddenly all those stars began falling on me, on my soul, and I said, all of that exists, and I didn't know what existed. I also forgot about that dream. I dreamed it maybe when I was 11 to 12 years old. And now I remembered and started thinking, is there something more? Is there something above the sun? And then I started searching. I began searching and I saw that spiritual world, meaning that in that world which things we do not see, that there exists God. And I knew this one prayer that my mom taught me. My mom was a Catholic by tradition, but she didn't practice. We only celebrated Christmas and Easter and so on. She taught me that prayer. I then prayed it. It's the Lord's Prayer, of course, that's the one. I was praying and asking God, thinking about all that, and I even had some experiences in the military. They confirmed to me that there's something more. Once I was on guard duty, I was pretty hungry and I said, oh God, let me eat something now. God, can you help me, and so on, right? And then I walked and there was a box. I was just silently sitting in that corner. And out of that corner popped fruit bar. That was a thing back in the day. You got it in the army. Compressed fruit, and then I took it all happy. See, that was my confirmation that God exists and so on. And then I rejoiced in it and many such little things. I started connecting everything in some way. just to say something about my family. My mom, as I mentioned, she wasn't particularly religious, more about tradition. My father, he embraced communism and became a communist when he was around, I don't know, when he was young, say 20, 4 to 5 years, etc. However, he became disillusioned with these religions earlier and saw that it is something different. That's not what is preached in the church. And then he rejected it, embraced communism. However, then he recognized when it was the 71st Creation Spring, then he saw that communists too say one thing and do another, so he returned the membership card and didn't want to be in that membership anymore and so on. So I come from a background where there wasn't really any, I don't know, a reawakening of faith or anything. But here I am, I started thinking about God, seeking Him. And I started more and more to think in that way. I even read some books that it awakened my thinking, etc. And then I came back from the army after that, so it took almost a year, my search. And then I came to my dad's aunt in Zagreb, and she was always saying something about God and gave me a Bible. I then received the Bible, and now for the first time in 20 years, I have a Bible in my hand. For the first time in my hand, and naturally I was very interested. I started to read a bit, and when I was reading, I felt some kind of incredible power in it. And I remember reading some Psalms. Tears just started flowing from my eyes. I said to myself, this is something different. And then, I guess a couple of days later, I don't know exactly when I read the Bible for the first time, but right a few days after, I even remember the date. That was the 7th of November, 1982. I was in my room, my study room. I had a Bible in front of me and started reading the Bible. And a thought came to my mind, call upon Jesus. I said, Jesus, if you really exist, please show me. After I truly cried out to God, and then I just found myself in the presence of God. I knew I was now beside God. And I started to cry. I cried and cried because I felt how holy and magnificent God is. No matter how small, insignificant, and sinful I am, I cried, I cried. I went away. My cry turned into joy. I was filled with happiness, joyful for the first time, happy that I exist. That God exists, that all of it exists. And that's the answer to the question, it all exists. Yes, it does. All you need to do is call on Jesus, and He will reveal Himself if you do it sincerely. I realized later, yes, when I cried, God forgave all my sins and given me joy, filled me with joy and peace. And then I simply became a new person. What happened? How it manifested? So that I was reading the Bible. For 3 days I was in my room reading the Bible. Of course, I went to eat and so on, what I needed, but I was simply encouraged to read the Bible. I remember that I had an older brother and we were roommates in that academic environment. And he returned from college and then found me reading the Bible. And he asks, what are you doing? I said, reading the Bible. He just said, let it go, but I simply couldn't stop reading. Everything was so new, so interesting, and then it was filling me up more and more. Today it's funny when I remember it, when I started reading the Gospels for the first time. I was reading the Gospels and now I read something and then move on to another Gospel. I didn't even know they existed. 3 parallel Gospels, the Gospel according to John, etc. And then I thought, I've read this before. How is it written again? I've read this before. But in any case, it is my desire to read the Bible that showed me that God has revealed himself to us through the Bible. That the Bible is the way God speaks to us. And today I know that back then, God was speaking to me, teaching me. And was my beginning. That's where I started. I recognized God, but there my journey with God was just beginning. Thank God. He revealed himself to us, and thank God it is his will to reveal himself to everyone. Just call out to God, and he will reveal himself to anyone. Amen.